All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Ethan. I'm the coach for Agent Hacker this weekend. I'm here with Chief Master Sergeant Roberson with the United States Space Force. We're super happy to have you here to have you answer some questions about career opportunities and your experience with the United States Space Force. Do you want to start off with giving us a little bit of an introduction about yourself? Um, I think you're actually muted right now. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
No worries.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Wendee Roberson. I'm so excited to be here at this hackathon event. I looked into it. It's so interesting. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you all. So I am in the Space Force. I transferred about a year ago from the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 22 years as a computer systems operator and cybersecurity technician. So very much in the comm world, but more of the enterprise comm world of providing communication services to entire bases and such. I've had a lot of different roles in the Air Force, and that's just what a military service normally gives you. You're not always going to do your normal job. But when the opportunity for the Space Force came up, I was kind of intrigued by it, kind of scared, and I put my name in the hat and I got picked. And since I've been in, it's been very different from my Air Force career. So like I said, I've only been in the Space Force coming up on a year in December. So that's a little bit about me. I'm married. My husband's also in the Air Force, so we are a mill-to-mill service family. And I have 3 kids, and we currently live in the Maryland, D.C. area, but I've been all over the world.
Cool. Yeah, I'm also located in Maryland. I go to UMD, so we're kind of in the same little geographic area right now. And if any of you listening have any questions throughout this, you can feel free to comment them. I have a list of my own questions, but I can also I'll monitor the chat and ask any of those if those come up too. But one question we have right now is that if like you could explain the difference between Air Force and the Space Force, and maybe go into like a little bit more detail about what you do at the Space Force.
Okay, so the Air Force, is basically to provide protection and advancement of the air domain, and there's a lot of other missions that go into that. And ultimately, the Space Force was created. It's still under the Department of the Air Force, similar to the same way that the Marines fall under the Navy, but we are focused on the space domain. And that came out because it's realizing that's vital to our nation, it's vital to our security, and it's kind of uncharted territory. And so we need to get a handle on that and ensure that space is available for everyone, civilians and military, to exploit as needed. So currently my job, as I switched over to the Space Force, I am at headquarters up here at the Pentagon. I am the senior enlisted advisor to the Chief of Technology and Innovation Officer. Basically, as a headquarters staff, most military, if anybody out there is kind of familiar with how the military is organized, your headquarters staff has different divisions like an S1, an S2, an S3, and each of those are kind of caveats to personnel, intel, operations, comm, and it's very broken out in about 10 different organizations. The Space Force changed it and is actually trying to structure itself a little bit more to the way that the industry and typical companies structure, and we only have 4 divisions. And CTIO, Chief of Technology and Innovation, is actually something that doesn't exist in the other services. Our role is to help facilitate and foster innovation, but also to promote and push the digital transformation of the Space Force. General Raymond, our Chief of Space Operations, he's very much focused on us being a digital service. And that's a very loaded word. Like, what does that mean to be digital? Most of us probably feel like we're digital, but are we really? Do we just use digital technology, or do we engage and think in a digital world all the time so that we're constantly, doing things better, faster, and more innovative? So we're charged, in essence, with helping push the entire service to become digitally fluent and become a digital service.
Cool. That's really interesting. So you've been in the cyber career for about 23 years now, like you were mentioning, and you're the first ever senior enlisted advisor to the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer. So what challenges have you identified in the cyber community, and like what are your plans to combat these kinds of challenges?
So one of the things that is challenging in the cyber community, and I saw this a lot when with the airmen that I was over, um, was that you have these big, huge, broad networks of the Air Force networks that you have to help maintain, and you're just one little spoke off of that, supporting a base that has its own mission and own things they need to do. And because of the control to put on the network in order to have security, it actually left very little that that technician can do. And how that kind of played out for each individual, especially like a young airman coming on board, is that you end up getting like a routine job. You know, you're just like a help desk person. Hey,
Right.
and then at that, you don't even have the permissions to do what you need to do to fix it. You just need to put in a ticket that somebody else somewhere else fixes. And it was very, could be demoralizing for some people. And there are such smart, skilled individuals that are joining all branches of the military. And this would be challenging to them. Like they would have experience and the background and the ability to do more, but because of the way the system was made, they were limited on what they could do. Um, and that was a very frustrating thing. And I think in the Space Force, we're taking that and realizing that every single person in the military, every single person in our service has skills. And it doesn't matter what rank is on your sleeve or your uniform, you have skills, and we need to make sure that we use those and highlight them and put you in the right position in the right projects that are for your skills. So you can come in as a junior person, but if you have a bachelor's degree already, or maybe not even a degree, but you've learned on your own how to program and you have advanced skills that are self-taught, get you to where you can use those, and not limit you because of your rank or your position. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to overcome, because the Space Force is going to be small. We're going to be lean and agile. We're not going to be big like the Air Force and other services. And they have control because they are big. I mean, I'm not trying to knock them. You have to have some control mechanisms in order to assure fairness and equality in such a big organization. But we're going to be lean and agile so we can have a more holistic approach to get very tailored, the right person and the right job who has the right skills at the right time.
Very cool. That's also very, very interesting. I honestly did not know much about that, or like anything involving these careers, like for any Department of Defense or Space Force thing before this. So again, really cool. I want to go more into like about what a cyber guardian is, and maybe like as a 3 times deployed cyber guardian, maybe you could talk more about like what your typical day in the life is.
So that's a little interesting because again, I've only been a guardian for about a year, so sometimes I have to compare. And like my typical day as a guardian, and I'm on headquarters staff, so I'm not at that, like what I experience is probably vastly different than what all the guardians across that are at the field commands and the deltas and in the remote ground station units out there. They're experiencing different things. But all I know is that I've been at this job, it's every day is different. While in the past you had so many routines and so many things were kind of known, even like PCSing, which is moving, like you move from one base to the other, you knew what your job was. Oh, I'm going to this base. I know what I'm going to be doing. This is my role because this is my career field. It was so laid out and routine. I had no idea coming here. There's never been another person that's done this job before. I had no idea, and every day is new. And that's actually what most of the people on my team are experiencing. We're literally figuring things out every single day. And everybody on the headquarters staff has vast amounts of experience, highly educated, highly experienced, long careers, but we all have a passion to not get caught up with doing things the same way. And so we're constantly trying to challenge those routines and habits. So what I do is different every single day. And I can't actually speak to like what the guardians out there are doing, but I know that they're kind of in the same boat. It's a new service when we are trying to not just fall into the way the old way that the Air Force did and kind of those common military routines. So I'm sure everybody's out there is feeling a lot of disruption, but excitement on just doing things different and better.
Cool. So could you like why is this like career path like really important for the United States Air Force, and like without it, what kind of threats would we encounter?
So I'm sure everybody can, imagine like what would life be out without comm? Like, our civilian life would be different, our military life would be different. It's critical to every service. It's super critical to space force because our domain is space, and we don't have anyone up there doing anything. Like everything is down here, terrestrial, and we have to have comm to communicate. Additionally, which I'm sure probably the wider audience probably has more understanding of how comm networks work and our links, but most people don't understand how critical space is to just our everyday life. I mean, can you imagine what our life would be like if GPS didn't exist?
Right.
It's such a critical component to even have simple things like your online transactions because of the timing. And some adversaries would love to disrupt that. If they took out our GPS, like life as we know it might cease to exist, and it would be disruptive to the military, it would be disruptive to the civilian sector. So that's why space is so critical. We need to protect it, and we need to make sure that we can have our systems up there and they're safe. But then we also need to exploit it in the sense of we need to ensure that commercial companies can get up there. Like there's so many more nations now that are becoming spacefaring nations, and we have a space industry. And other nations do too, and that's based off of the concept that space would be free, almost similar to the way that most nations would assume that seafaring, you can transport goods across the oceans because it's relatively safe. Once that confidence is taken away and it's not safe, then that's when industry falls apart, and we are here to protect that because that's part of our national security and some part of our way of life.
Right. So like, could you elaborate maybe on how your actions have like denied our adversaries and like kept our systems safe?
Well, I would say one way is to look at that, we've been able to progress technology-wise with satellite communications and all of the new space industries, which I'm learning myself too, because again, I come from the comm world. I'm trying to learn more about the space world, and I'm just blown away of like how many there are that space lift, space launch, and then also space tracking and satellites, and it plays a part in so many different industries. Like obviously GPS matters, but weather, the intel gathered from being able to view the world and track weather, track and damage, track climate change, it impacts everything. And all of that only exists when you have secure networks and secure comm links that can bring that data down and distribute it out to where it's needed. So it's kind of this weird thing that like space can't exist without comm, but now we're kind of like comm can't exist without space.
So now kind of going back to your comm experience, so like you were previously the superintendent of the 35th Communication Squadron in Misawa, Japan. Mm-hmm. And can you describe like the flights that made up your squadron and like the mission?
So when I was in Japan, I was at Misawa, which is the northern base of Japan, and we supported fighter squadrons out there. So the mission was a little bit more focused than some other bases. But again, we supported the network. That was the network nodes that were there on base. So we provided communications to all of the agencies on the base. And additionally, we provided some communication services that maybe weren't typical to like other users as far as like links that traveled through the base, but were part of other networks. So in a typical squadron, communication squadron, you have an operations flight, and then you have a plans and resources flight that kind of does more specialized things like projects and other services that aren't your regular routine operations. In the Air Force is going through a transition as well of their communications because everyone knows technology moves fast. Even the way we were structured for our communications was a kind of archaic old concept that was very much like who works on phones, who works on radios, who works on computer systems, and kept everyone, separate. Those things all blend together nowadays. So they're kind of going through an evolution as well of realizing that as things go more to the cloud, as things become more put over internet protocol, that, you know, not everything is different. Like a lot of things kind of blend together. And so there's a merger of the communications field as a whole. And I can't speak to the Army or Navy, but I'm positive they're experiencing the same thing, that they're all trying to evolve differently of how do we train people to be technicians on the technology that we need, and understanding that anybody that we train in 5-10 years, they're going to have to retrain.
Right.
So I laugh sometimes because my husband is in civil engineer. And so when he was an airman, he trained on equipment, you know, like heavy duty construction equipment. And even 10-15 years later, he can get back on that same equipment and know how to do it. I can't. The systems that I learned when I was an airman, you know, 20 years ago, they don't even exist.
They're all different now. Yeah.
They're all different. And so you quickly kind of lose that proficiency because it changes so fast. And that's kind of like that's kind of translating to the cyber guardians, is an understanding that we have to be adaptable. We cannot just be, oh, you learn this and that's all you're ever going to do, and 20 years later you can retire. We can't do that. 5 years later, that may not even be relevant anymore.
Right. And I think, you know, speaking to like the audience of people that are at our event today, like this is why hackathon skills are like, you know, hackathons are really good to learn. And, you know, we're going to move more into like, you know, career options like with the United States Space Force, and like the skills that you learn at hackathons, you know, they're very transferable. And like, especially like the people at hackathons, a lot of time they learn the skills to like be able to, you know, learn things quickly and to be able to get things done in a weekend. And, you know, as things are changing, like you were talking about, I think that, you know, that's really important. Being able to pick up new skills quickly.
If I can put in a small sales plug for one of the programs that we're doing different in the Space Force. So we're trying to promote digital fluency across the force. In other words, that comm members, cyber technicians aren't the only ones who are digitally fluent. Everybody is. The space operators, the intel folks, even the acquisitions folks, they all have digital influency. And we're really trying to promote this concept of understanding programming, right, and all the different programming languages. So we have a program called Supercoders. And basically, it's open to everybody in the Space Force. That's our military and our civilians that are in the Space Force. And if you bring prior knowledge of coding skills and a wide variety of things, then going through a small assessment, you can become part of a program where you go through an intense boot camp training of like 3 weeks with top-notch trainers. And then afterwards, you have an internship of, you know, 3 months, 6 months, depending on how it goes, of internship where you're actually developing programs and developing solutions that the field has said this is what we need. And we're doing that to, again, understanding that talent comes from everybody. Some people may not have a single certification or a degree, but they have learned how to program on their own just because they enjoy it. And that's what we really want to capture. People who have the desire to learn and are willing to put in the investment, like, they're the ones that are going to end up being the experts. And Supercoders is a way to kind of like get this program out there and have it be to where slowly we raise everyone's level of digital fluency. There is programming skills that are kind of organic in every unit and organization because people just have had them and have learned them. And then we have a cadre basically that we can kind of pull from in times of need. Like, okay, no kidding, we have this challenge. Who are our experts in Python or Java or Ruby or whatever, and pull from them and have them come together and collaborate to work on something. All the while, they still have their regular jobs, right, which could be space or whatever. So that's kind of the lean and agility piece that we're trying to focus. That don't pigeonhole people into one role. You can do other things and then still, you know, explore other avenues.
That's cool. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities to learn like lots of different things, which is always really good. So now moving into like how the Space Force has like helped you, like how was your experience and training? How it just helped you improve as an individual?
So one of the things is just improving as an individual is just kind of keeping that humility that you can always improve. You know, that even though as a chief, I still have to learn. I just I just took the Space 100 course, which is for, entry level people going into space, but it's like realizing I don't know that and I need to know that. And so I'm going to go and learn. Being able to learn online is awesome. And they're really trying to promote that to where you can learn online on your own pace in a way that works best for you. And that allows everybody to improve themselves, because before you had to go to sometimes if you had to go to school, you're set to timelines. Okay, this is a 2-week module and you need to be an expert at the end of this 2-week module before you move on. And maybe a classroom environment isn't how you learn best. This allows you okay, I may need a little bit more time, or let me review that again, or how can I play around with this? And online, you can do hands-on, you can do visual, you can read. So, the online training and this concept that we all have to continuously improve ourselves is really just helped me as a guardian just realize where do I need to improve? Where can I grow? Where can I be a better person? And that kind of helps you just have, courage to okay, I can take on a new challenge. I don't need to be in a comm role all my life. Maybe I can go in a space unit. Maybe I can go in an intel unit. I could do something completely different. And you just kind of learn that adaptability. I can do things, I can use my past experiences and keep learning and do new roles. So I can't stress it enough that that's kind of been a big thing. It was a huge change in this role from where I came from to known routine. I got it. Everybody else kind of I had my network of people that were been doing this role before too, to completely new. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no worries. Now, what are the next steps in your career, and what does the future look like for you?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm still kind of learning this role.
Right. I know you just said you just in the first year of what you're currently doing.
That's the exciting thing. It's I truly, when I think about an Air Force career, especially as a chief, because I'm not getting promoted anymore. There's no promotion. They were still okay, you move to this role and you go to this role, and it was kind of a predetermined, laid out path, and that was almost everybody's career. In the Space Force, it's not that way. They're really looking at, that goes to the changes they're making in their human capital and human resources, is what do people want? Not everybody wants the same things out of life, and that really impacts a lot of different aspects of where you move, what job you have, just things like that. And you don't have to go through that predetermined path that this is how you promote. It could be maybe you want to move a lot. Maybe some people don't ever want to move. Maybe you want to be very highly specialized, and I just want to do this one thing and be the master at it. Maybe you're kind of somebody who embraces, I like to learn everything and I'm always looking for something new. So many different people with so many different skills and desires, and having this ability to be a smaller force means that our human capital team can really look at that for each person and get the right fit of the person for the job needed. And honestly, that's such a new thing. It even kind of scares me a little bit to say that, because I haven't done that in 20 plus years. That's just so alienating. But really, when you kind of sit on it, I can think of times in my life where that would have been nice. When I was having a kid and I kind of wanted to spend more time at home. Maybe I needed a less demanding job, but didn't want it to impact my career.
Right.
20 years from coming out of high school to now, you go through a lot of life events, and
For real.
And the world changes on you, and you kind of need a team that's going to be supportive of that. When you're young, you're woo, send me anywhere, I'm good to go. But then once you get married, settle down, or even now, some of us are people my age, we have elderly family members that we need to be closer to home.
Right. Cool. So this is my last question. Where can we just find more information about your job and those like it? Just a little bit call to action for everybody.
So if you're interested, if anything I said maybe like kind of broke the norm of what you thought about the military, I highly suggest you look at spaceforce.mil, www.spaceforce.mil, and they will have more information out there. And that will kind of get you kind of started in like looking at what careers are available and looking at how things are different in the Space Force. And then, obviously talking to a recruiter, because depending on what questions you have and what you're thinking of, somebody will be there to talk to you and kind of help you decide your way. But if anybody out there was ever like, I'm never going to go into the military because it's not my thing, the Space Force is different. And we're actively recruiting the top talent, and we understand that some of the old ways in the military have to change in order to seek out the top talent. So we're here to listen to like what those needs are, what you want, what you need in life, and this is going to be a conversation between the members and the Space Force. So if that intrigues you, give it a try.
Yeah. So if this interests any of you, be sure to go to spaceforce.com, like was mentioned, and I believe on there you can find your local recruiter. And so if you have any questions, you can find go and contact that. This is one question that was just asked. This is only for U.S. nationals, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, if this is interesting to you and you're not a U.S. national, thanks for getting some information about it. But unfortunately,
I'm not an expert, but if that person is interested, I think there's programs that have to look into it on if you wanted to gain U.S. citizenship. There are programs for that. I'm not an expert on any of them to speak to them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure, again, if you go to the website, you might be able to get some information on that. Cool. So I think that's all we have for today. Thank you to Captain Roberson for being here today, for helping us.
Chief Roberson.
Roberson, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Cool. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.